Hello everybody and welcome to Tuesday Talks. I'm Harsh from Fun Academy.
And I'm Sanna from Fun Academy too.
And today we have yet another exciting episode, and today's topic is small group activities. And we will be talking about some concrete examples as to you can arrange in your own class and facilitate these activities. If you remember last week, if you didn't tune in, please go to our playlist and have a look at the video. We spoke about mixed age group and small group activities, and then we said that in the weeks to come we will go into more detail giving concrete examples in this topic. So today we have picked small group activities, and we are in a room of as you will soon see, around about 70 square meters in size, and we have arranged all these activities in this space. But let me flip the camera and focus on Sanna, and let's talk a little bit more. So Sanna, to start off with, a little bit more about small group activities and what kind of ratio are we talking about, and how is that different from home group, just to get us into the subject.
Yeah, a few words about what we're going to talk about. So home group is the idea when you have all your children in one home group. And like in the kindergarten where we currently are, that's the model. So we have a home group where all the children gather together, and in Finland we have the ratio of, if the children are smaller, it's 1 teacher to 4 kids. If the children are older, then it's 1 teacher to 7 children. And there are typically 3 adults in a home group. So here in this kindergarten we would have the children learning in their home groups. One way of doing these small group activities is to pull out groups of children, and the groups can be from 2 to 9 or 10 children per small group activity. And here they would bring the children to work on small group activities, and then again part of the home group would stay in their home base. In some kindergartens they purely work based on these small groups and small group activities, so there's a wide range of differences in how to use small group pedagogy, either as the main way for the children to learn, or then as like complementary or separate from the home group idea. With the home group, the group is bigger, and that's in many cases quite challenging, so people tend to want to have smaller groups with their children so that they can be focusing on a smaller group and some activities that are specifically designed for these children, also working on the trust and the communication between the child and adult, and giving the teacher an opportunity to more individually be observing each and every child within the time frame of those activities. So how to use small group activities is pretty much based on your own pedagogy and how you want to support the pedagogy that you're using. And the examples that we will be looking at here today can be either the main way of distributing learning, fun learning in particular in our case, or then it can be something that you add to your current home group pedagogy as additional.
Yeah, absolutely. And as usual, we are coming live from our partner kindergarten in Vantaa in Finland.
Yes.
And here, when we talk about small group activities, what kind of the number of children do we have in these groups?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the groups can be from 2 to 9 or 10 children. So the teacher can pull out 2 children if necessary, or a few kids all the way up to 9 or 10 if it's like a big or small group that they're tending to. So the group size differs and is based on the needs and choices, decisions of the teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. And should we go to our first activity example?
Yeah, let's start with our "Where is the dog?" activity. So the idea here is that we've hidden something in the environment, and in this case the hidden thing is a dog, and the children in this case find it quite easily in the middle of the room, hiding behind some pillows. In some cases we have find what is hidden in the treasure chest, and in the chest there we also might have some orientation object that will kind of set the tone or orientate the children to the topic of the day or the plays. hinting toward what the teacher has planned for them. Today we have the find the dog activity to start with, so the children find the dog, and after they've found the dog, they typically go to their playboard to make choices. We'll be paying more attention to the playboard on another day, because that will require a little bit of more time to explain what that means and how that works. But the idea is that the children do make choices about on which order and with whom they play. But let's talk about that at another time. But so now today they find the dog here, and that brings them to think that maybe they're going to start and want to play with the vet station. And the veterinary station here is connected to our many of the academic curricular objectives that we have. And the main thing, though, here is we let the children play, and the teacher observes and sees how the children are playing, and minds the group and helps the children gain vocabulary and communicate with each other. So the teacher doesn't guide the play, but can be supporting the play and definitely observing and seeing what the children are needing and what they would be wanting to do, or what they would be interested in, so that we could get the context correct. And as mentioned many times before, the work with the environment is constant. It needs to be catering for the physical, the psychological, and the social needs of the children, and that requires a lot of thinking, planning, and preparing from the adults. Okay, the children here are playing with the vet station, but one thing, as an example, that the teachers can be adding to this play is talking about size, for example, or in other words, vocabulary, big and little, large and small. A small example here, we have a big bed, and here we have a small hospital bed. So we have two beds. It's big bed and a small bed. And here we have a big animal, and then we have the small animal. And learning about the different sizes is, of course, something that we want the children to do. But what's interesting in this case is that what happens next when we place our big animal into the hospital bed, and suddenly we see that the big bed is a small bed for this big animal. And then when we place our little animal into its small hospital bed, we suddenly see that, oh my goodness, this little bed is a big bed for our small animal. And then you can probably think of what comes next and what kind of discussions we can have with the children about size and sequencing, and then we have more of different sized beds to be putting in order and organizing. And again, depending on the sensitivity period of the child, they will be doing different kinds of sequences and play with that topic.
Yeah.
In addition to the fact that they're playing vet.
Absolutely. And this is also related to life sciences directly.
Yes.
And if you want to bring sort of STEAM-based education also into your environment.
Yes.
And just so you can get a closer look, we have some interesting forms that the children can fill.
Yeah, they can be filling in their patient card, which is super fun, being important, and learning also about the profession. So one important component in this environment is the learning about different professions. As mentioned before, we're working on life skills, and among life skills are career and profession skills, and those are connected directly to professions. And these are examples of how the children can be seeing and really experiencing these different professions. Like in this environment, we have things like actor and veterinary and shopkeeper and gardener and more.
Absolutely. And we just spoke about the activity about big and small and comparing sizes. And then we have here another station. We did take a tour of the role play room, so our viewers might be familiar with the setup, but then you can spot the differences we have made since then.
Yes, and the environment is continuously a living environment, and that means that we add based on what our children in our kindergarten or group are are needing and wanting and are interested in. So we brought more of the numbers and more of the amounts into this station, and then trying to help the children understand even more and go more deep into the maths. We started recycling. I haven't eaten enough eggs to get us to 100 yet, but I'll soon get to that. But the idea is here that the children can be looking at the amounts of 10, 20, 30, 40, and then when they see all 100 places for eggs, they're looking at place value and mathematics at different depth. We don't want to push too much, but when the children show interest and are excited and want to play with numbers and amounts, then we just let them and we observe and we bring more into the environment based on what their interests are.
Yeah, absolutely. And another place where we would be using some mathematical skills is also our next station over there.
Yeah, the next, like typically mathematical station would be, of course, shopkeeping. So here we're counting prices, and with younger children we're counting the amount of items that we can have in our basket. And connected directly to maths is also putting things back in place. So the younger children with the sensitive period of order are super interested in putting things back in place and in a particular order. So that's something that we work on with this station, and that's an extension that we will be putting to this particular center because of what we have been observing when we see the younger kids coming in and wanting to make some order. So maybe in one of the next Tuesday talks we'll be seeing how the shop evolves to also cater for those children.
Absolutely. And another interesting transition is from the shop you learn to buy things you need, perhaps the food that you eat.
Exactly.
But then we can also learn how to grow your own food as well.
Yes, in this environment where we currently are, children understand that they buy food from the store. So in our case, it's interesting then to go backtrack to how do we get the food, where does food come from? And we have already been working on care of plants with the children, so they have been watering the plants and taking care of plants, making sure that they get enough sunlight but not too much so they don't dry out and so on, and keeping this area tidy. But what we're now doing with them is talking about planting the seeds, and in our case we will be using different herbs that we will be planting and then watching them grow, and at the same time we will be talking with them about the parts of plants so that they understand how the roots work and what is the stem and what are leaves, and again connecting this with these wonderful National Geographic cards to also categorizing and memory game and different activities that help the children then remember the parts of the plant with this kind of a setup, and then connecting it to the reality that they're working on when they actually plant the plants. And this is a easy setup even in a smaller environment if you don't have the outdoors that you can be using. Outdoors, of course, is perfect if weather and space allows.
Moving on from that station, we have a interesting one right here.
Mm-hmm. This is a small arts and crafts station that's connected to what's happening in this role play room in general, and this is like an easy setup to prepare. And again, depending on what age group you're working with, you can prepare. So you have a small card-sized thing that you just fold like this, and then you draw the cutting lines for the children. And if they're capable, they can be using their scissors and then cutting this triangle out. And when they open it up, then it looks like this. And the next thing that the children can then do with their crayons is draw the head, arms, and feet. And what this turns into is a modern paper doll. What a modern paper doll is and this is the fun part. Well, of course, cutting with scissors is also something that gives you like self-esteem and capabilities. But But then when you start using your paper doll, you can see how it changes clothes depending on what you have in the background. And what the children then can be doing is looking through and designing what kind of a dress does their doll have. This can be connected to the topic of professions, or it can be just like anything, like any kind of designs that they're looking at. And just to give a few examples of what happens next is that the children take their the phone that was placed in the station, and in the Fun Academy case, this is Waba's phone, because Waba is the artistically interested one of our characters, and the children then take pictures of their own paper doll with different kinds of backgrounds, and then they can also tell stories about who these characters are and share the stories at home or with their friends at school. So this turns into part of the role play while it's design and fine motor skill practice. So one of the things that we constantly want to be doing in this type of a environment is looking at, first of all, the capabilities and needs of the children that we have in our small group, but how do we connect the activities to the curricular objectives and to the life skills that we're hoping the children will be developing in our care.
Absolutely. And what's quite interesting here is that from a simple arts and crafts activity, we also brought in meaningful use of technology,
Yes.
where they can share their work with their friends and inspire each other.
Exactly. I think technology is a big topic, and that's something that we want to talk about at another time in more depth and length. But this is a perfect way to bring technology into the preschool in a very meaningful way, helping the children understand, and adults as well, that what we want is the children to become active participants and creators using technology, and not as like targets or like like the objective, the passive consumer of technology or digital. So helping the children use the tools of today in a meaningful and creative way. So this is one mode to do that, and one example, and then we can think of more.
Yeah, and also just to add to that, it also allows the children to make the connection between digital and real life, so they're not
Yes.
stuck
Yep.
in a screen or
Yep.
somewhere in the digital world, but they can actually transfer between the skills and knowledge in both worlds.
Yeah, and this is also like an interesting way to make Mother's Day cards, for example, and a Mother's Day card that you can digitally send. Of course, you can also print it out, but it's interesting that you can be also using these for greetings. And that brings us to that topic as well, so helping the children understand what they can do and how they can communicate both digitally and in the physical world.
Absolutely. And now we have yet another station
Okay.
that also gets those creative juices flowing.
Yeah, pretty much within the same theme, so we're continuing with storytelling. In that example, we were using a character and telling the story around that character based on what the character looked like and what the child had designed. So here we have a puppet theater, and we have ready-made puppets for the children, and the idea is here that the children using these characters can be creating their own stories, but that's not enough. So what we've also done is we've left the theater itself made out of recycled cardboard material unfinished. So this turns also into a craft idea, and somehow helping the children gravitate toward this activity is to have them decorate the theater itself, and then also after they've decorated the actual theater, they can be making the backdrops for the plays. So involving the children in the whole construction of a station is also very interesting and can take a longer time. So this type of a thing is more like a project, and after that it feels like their own, and then they want to be playing in their own theater after they've built it and designed it and named their theater. And again, here we're talking about the different professions that are connected to the theater. So acting and stage setting and directing and all the different professions that go with that topic are also present in this play. And super easy connection to books and reading. So we will be in our library learning about wonderful stories, and those stories can be the source of ideas for what we're playing with if the children don't come up with their own stories. or then they can be connecting the character that they made with their digital crafts to the stories that they're developing in this case. So this is part of the art education that we have, and since we love surprises, we always like hiding some ideas in boxes. I'm not going to show you what's here, for the children to be inspired by. And again, it's not forced upon them, but sometimes they need some inspiration, and then we can help them with something that we've hidden in a secret place.
Absolutely. And as we said, we're working with one room that is about 70 square meters, and we have tried to use every inch of that room, as you will see when we move into our next and final space, which is the bathroom or the washroom.
Yes.
And I can just show you the sign on the door, which we think is the best sign, which leads us into this space.
Okay, what are we doing here when we're talking about small group activities? The idea is here to remind us about us being able to use like any room or any space that we find in the environment if we don't have enough space in the actual environment that's meant for children and children's work and play. In this case, we've brought all the water play and water activities into the washroom, where it's easier to set up. And in this case, we're talking about the sink and float activity, again with recycled materials. And this can be pure like fun and play and splashing, making sure that the children are wearing proper gear for that kind of a setup. But this is also about scientific method. So here we are a scientist working on our hypothesis first, trying to decide whether the objects that we have brought in today float or sink, and after our hypothesis we test our objects and then try and understand what makes something sink and what makes something float, and document those results and then discuss those results with others. So this is a way of, like a simple activity, super fun for the children, but when we connect it to the scientific method throughout the years, the children really start understanding what that means. And this is one of those plays. Make sure that when you work with water, you have proper supervision and guidance. Never leave the children alone, even with a smaller amount of water, and be sure to have something comfortable for the teacher to be sitting on in this type of an environment, because the children might be playing here for quite a while and the teacher needs to be observing what's going on. But use bathrooms, use corridors, use other rooms that you wouldn't initially think of as learning environments when you need to maybe have more room for some physical activity in a long corridor, or when you're thinking about these types of water activities that you couldn't do in the typical classroom.
Wonderful! And I think that with that, we have now come to the end of our Tuesday Talk episode. And we hope that this will inspire our viewers to set up their own activities, bearing in mind that, of course, these activities don't have to happen in one place. They can move around, and also the activities themselves can change and evolve throughout the weeks and the year.
Yes, and never forget outdoors.
So then, thank you for staying tuned for yet another episode of Tuesday Talks. We really hope that you got some fantastic ideas and inspirations that you can try in your own classrooms. And in the weeks to come, we will continue to give you more examples of how you can make little impactful changes in your own spaces and inspire the little ones to embrace fun learning.
Have a wonderful week.
And please remember to like and follow us on Facebook, and also hop over to our Fun Learning Facebook group, where we will be sharing more still pictures and ideas for you. And we will see you next week, and have fun learning.
Have fun learning.
Bye.
Bye.